Hi folks, Jason Pritchard here with you Sunday afternoon. It's about 5:30 on February the 23rd, and you're here for the inaugural edition of Cold Rain's Weather Outlook. We're still going to do Cold Rain's Weather World, which is a little bit of a longer is turned into actually a longer form sort of content podcast, if you will, or a vlog or whatever you want to call it, where we kind of dig into the weather and really do deep dive into various processes behind the weather and spend quite a bit of time talking about the long range and talking about a few other things too, and have a couple of little fun segments within the show. This is going to be a shorter form content series, and we're going to do this to really capture what's happening right now with the weather across the country, and then a quick look at the next maybe 5 to 7 days, and touch on any events that are imminent or ongoing, that are of consequence. And so hopefully we'll keep this sort of content a little bit shorter, and I can maybe get one of these out in the morning every day and still do a Cold Rain's Weather World several times per week, but maybe not every day. But anyway, I want to keep you up to date on the weather. And so if you're here for the first time, thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here. If you're returning, glad that you're here too. Please consider, if you haven't done so, subscribing to the channel. It'll help us grow. It'll help YouTube kind of kick it out to more people. And so I'd like to, grow the channel, and certainly by interacting with it, by subscribing, by hitting the like button, and making comments. Where appropriate, we're certainly happy to have all of those comments and interactions and engagements with the video content. So thank you for doing that. If you have a prayer request, please put that in the comment section. Happy to pray over anything that's on your mind. Question about the show, question about weather, anything related, let me know, and we can go from there. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive in and sort of fly through things here today. So we're going to look at our satellite picture, and you can see three main areas of disturbed weather. One here over Louisiana in the deep south, where disturbance is producing precipitation, rainfall, of course, much too warm to snow here now. And so we're seeing some moderate to heavy rain in spots. This is going to move on off into the Gulf of Cold Rain, and then over into we'll call it central and southern Florida. We've got another light area of disturbed weather up here. It's just producing mainly clouds, so it's not really a strong storm system or anything like that. There's some echoes on the radar, but they're not really hitting the ground, so nothing too concerning there. And then the big event that we've been talking about, multiple hazards are in effect up here in the Pacific Northwest, as this atmospheric river just brings a deluge of rain and storm after storm up here. So high winds, heavy snows and higher peaks, avalanche warnings in effect. We'll get into that. But that's kind of what's going on around the country now. As far as our radar goes, it sort of bears it out. We see our heavy rainfall up here in the Pacific Northwest, into Washington, Seattle, Portland, over into west. The big weather's here in the focus in the western half of the state. Then you've got some precipitation breaking out east as well into Idaho and to Montana. This is quite a bit lighter back in here. If we look down here at the Gulf, here's our other area of concern. You see these embedded little convective elements within this precipitation shield. They're moving on off generally to the east. So areas over here in Alabama and Georgia, eventually we'll see some rain, but this will scoot on down into really affect Florida. That's where the bulk of the rainfall is going to fall after it moves on through this area here. And then up here in the north, sort of in the northeast in the Great Lakes area, you get this little disturbance. So nothing major going on here. I looked at some of these spots and I couldn't find any reports of precipitation hitting the ground, maybe something under this county here. And so light, nothing to really fret about here. I'm not worried about any kind of big winter storm up here or anything like that. Current temperatures, you can see our map here. I'll move this over. 40s and 50s up in the northwest, 40s, even 60s making it up into South Dakota. So it's very, very warm compared to just a few days ago. It was in the minus 20s. And so this has got to feel good for you folks up here in the plains, into the heartland area, into the Great Lakes. It's a little bit chillier, but it's still much better than 0 or below 0. So this has to feel pretty good. Over into the northeast, that's where our cold spot is for the country. I mean, this is normal for you guys to have this kind of weather this time of year, so nothing out of the ordinary here. And then down into, we'll come back over here and take a look at the southeast. We've got a nice day here in Morganton. Went out for a walk today. It felt really nice to be outside. Spring is on the way. Hopefully we'll get another chance at a winter storm or two, but really looks looks like spring is not too far off, and it certainly feels like it out here today. Warmer in Florida, warmer in the desert Southwest as well. Now, taking a look at our hazards map, and we're going to get on a different display here, we can see really up in the Pacific Northwest is where our focus is. So the northwestern quadrant of the country. These gold areas are high wind warnings. So as these storm systems kind of make their way in, some of these higher elevations here or in Montana are going to experience higher wind. These are places that you're going to see the winds gust into the 50s, maybe even 60 miles an hour. Blue or avalanche warnings, so you can see these all up and down the Cascades here in the Rockies as well. And then back over into uh, Oregon and Washington, you've got flood watches and warnings. Most of these are actually warnings, or flood watches. So you get flood watches up in effect. You've got some warnings for some rivers that have exceeded their banks, but mostly it's just flood watches. And so we're expecting several inches of precipitation up here, more in the higher peaks, more along the coast, where you have high wind warnings in effect there as well. If we actually kind of drill in here, we can see. So if I click on in Oregon here, you can see all of these coastal areas here under a high wind warning. And so gusts, this is going to be for tomorrow. So gusts are going to gust up into the 50s to 60s. Wind advisories up for some of the other areas, and so you're going to see winds gusting maybe into the 40s to approaching 50 in spots. So if you've got weakened trees or saturated soils, which you will have, you could see a few trees down and some localized power outages. But the big event's going to be right along the coast as a storm system winds up off the coast and moves on to the north. Looking at the precipitation coming in, so taking a, you know what, let's it's going to show a satellite picture here. If we go back to our GOES view, we can actually translate this over to the Western Pacific. And we can see, let's put that into motion here, and we can actually see what's going on. This will show us. So look at this. All the way north of Hawaii, you've got this big axis of precipitation, or precipitation, this cloud cover coming in. This is what they tend to refer to as the atmospheric river. So this is just basically this area here is making a beeline into the northwestern sections of the country, and this is just this loaded. The moisture content is just loaded for bear here, and it's just going to drop everything it can up here in this area, in the western portions of Washington and Oregon. So storm system after storm system is just translating in here like this. And so that's when you hear atmospheric river, that's what you should think about. But that's what's going on there. Looking at the precipitation amounts coming in here. So we're looking at European ensemble. We've already got, this is hour 6. So we're looking at, anywhere from a half an inch in the blue areas up to potentially an inch up here in the Cascades. And so if we roll this on into motion over the course of the next couple of days, we'll get some rain overnight tonight and into the overnight hours. That'll back off a little bit as we get into Monday, and then a new round of rain comes in with a storm system on Monday. That's going to bring high winds and really bring torrential rains for the coastal areas and some of the higher peaks in between Seattle, Portland. I mean, you're still looking at 2 to maybe 3 inches of rain, but certainly the lion's share of the rain is going to fall along the coast in the higher peaks of the coastal range into the Cascades. In the Olympics, you can see kind of the higher numbers there. And looking at rolling this on forward, so we're looking at Monday into Tuesday, early Tuesday morning, rolling this on through. By Wednesday, everything kind of clears out. So you've got flood watches up through Tuesday, through Monday, I guess Monday evening here in the northern part of Washington State. And as you get on down in here into Oregon, you're looking at flood watches lasting into early Wednesday. And so high winds, as I said, strong snow levels going up to 6,000 feet before they kind of lower again as the system pulls away. And the cold front moves back through, and you get chillier air, and so it brings the snow levels back down. But one of the things that we're going to be concerned about in the Pacific Northwest specifically is avalanches and landslides. So as you've got snow in the higher peaks, more snow falls, and then some of the snow levels come up, you get rain. Rain will destabilize all of that snow, and you could really, in some of the backcountry areas, you could have some landslides. So if you're driving along those areas, which you probably shouldn't be on the lookout. It's a dangerous situation. Avalanche warnings are all up and down the Cascades here, so just watch out there over here in the Rockies as well. But precipitation comes on in, it comes to an end Wednesday as high pressure moves in. And then you've got our total. So this is the European ensemble precipitation total. And if we roll this on out, you can see a lot of rains falling in on Monday into overnight Mondays when you get and into Tuesday is when you get kind of the big last push of that rain. And as you can see here, these colors represent 2 and 3 to as many as 4 to 6 inches of rain, where you start to see these darker shades of brown here. So coastal range in the coast, immediate coast, and then up in the Cascades, up in the Olympics, you're seeing that's where the bulk of the rain is going to fall over the next 48 hours in here. So watch out for that. Batten down the hatches, as they say, and then over here to Idaho and Montana, you see a little bit more rain there, but you're going to have some strong winds to go with that. So speaking of snowfall earlier, look how the snowfall kind of plays out. So not a lot of snow falling in the Cascades in the coastal range here. And then if you go on out a little bit more, 36 hours, this is overnight Monday, you start to see that pick up a little bit. Snow levels will fall back, and so you'll see a little bit more in the way of snow. If you go on out in time, if we run this out through the whole thing, you'll start to see snowfall pick up. But we're just looking at the next 5 or 6 days. So up here, in the northern sections, you're seeing potentially over 2 feet of snow, but a foot or more in some of these sections down here as you get into Oregon. So that's a snowfall situation. So we've got a number of hazards. One of those is the wind as well. We talked a little bit about that. This is a European windfall map. When you see these posted on social media, just be aware that you're not really seeing accurate information when you start to look at these maps several days out. You'll see 60 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour mile an hour gusts. You'll see that kind of stuff posted. That's not actually accurate. These windfall maps tend to be overdone. Now, when we get in here into the short range, in the next 48 hours or so, looking at some of these numbers up here in the higher peaks, probably not going to get 70s or 80s, but certainly you could see some 50s and 60s. And into the coast, you're looking at 40s and 50s. And the Seattle area, you're probably in Portland, kind of your major cities. You're looking at 30 gusty winds, 30s into the 40s potentially, particularly as we get on into this is Monday morning. We roll it through the day on Monday. That next system, this is the big system. This is the one that's going to wind up off the coast. You could kind of see not really an eye, but it's the sort of the center of circulation, and the main wind field is coming into the coast. Pressure is going to get down to around 980. I was reading some of the discussions before, and the local offices up here have a really good handle on the specific geographical situation, and they can kind of share with you, where you really need to be looking out based on the geography for the highest winds. It looks like southwestern Washington, northeastern Oregon is where you're going to see the higher winds, particularly along the coast as this comes on in. I'm not looking for 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. This is probably not. This is kilometers per hour anyway. Let's show miles per hour. That'll help us out a little bit better anyway. But let's roll it back, and we come on in. See those wind gusts start to come in on Monday evening, and look at that. So Monday afternoon, Monday evening, you're seeing strong winds come in. So these are wind gusts, not sustained winds, but potentially 50 to maybe 60 miles an hour right along the coast here. Some of the higher peaks, you're going to gust up into the 50s to maybe near 60 at the peak of this thing. I doubt we're going to see a lot of gusts into the 80s. Here, but keep in mind, 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts are going to blow things around and potentially knock down some trees. So be prepared for some power outages, sporadic here. And you can see this as we get on into Tuesday. This sort of lifts to the north, and then eventually kind of peters out a little bit as that storm system pulls off to the north. And so that's your wind threat. So you've got heavy rains, high winds, snow, flooding potential, landslides on the steepest slopes, and of course avalanches in the higher terrain. So be careful if you're traveling about in this area here. So all that's going to wind down as we get into midweek, and that'll be nice. You can have a chance to maybe dry out a little bit. Now, looking at the rest of the country, not really a lot that's going to go on over the next 5 to 7 days. It's kind of a quiet period, relatively speaking. Your jet stream, you can kind of see as we put this forward Monday into Tuesday. It's sort of a zonal flow. You got a subtropical jet down here and a northern branch up here. It's sort of going west to east. You're not going to get a lot of storm activity when that happens. You'll get some clouds, and so you may have some partly cloudy skies and see clouds move overhead, but you're not going to get kind of major activity. And so putting this on out, you start to see a little kink down here that's way out of the picture. When you start to see kinks in the jet stream and bends and big troughs, that's where you start to really think about, you know, a potential for storm activity. So if we get on out here to 96 hours, that's Thursday, you start to see this bend in the jet stream here. So you're probably going to have a storm system that develops somewhere off along the eastern seaboard. It doesn't look to me like if we're just looking at the jet stream that this is a major storm, but that's probably your next batch of activity getting on into Friday and Thursday and Friday. And so rolling that through to 144 hours out, you got another little kink in here, so maybe some light precipitation breaking out, and then that takes us out to 7 days. So no real major activity over the next 7 days. If we look at looking at our the little Gulf system again, that's the kind of the other major hot spot around the country. Down here, you've got all of that rain kind of moving through. We saw that before on the radar, and bringing it kind of in focus in terms of how much precipitation we expect to fall. So running this on out ahead, looks like about 1 inch. So this is GEFS. The European model is kind of generally in agreement with this, although it may have the precipitation a little bit south. So along the Gulf Coast into Florida, that's where you're looking at maybe 1 inch or 2 over the next 48 hours. This is let's see here. So yeah, this is valid for 48 hours. So that's how that's going to play out. You guys are going to experience a little bit of rain, nothing too major. So looking at our temperature map here, mild weather is sort of dominating the country, particularly down here along the southern half of the country, really poking up into the plains. And our colder weather, if you can really call it all that cold, is up here to the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, and don't really see a lot of change to that over the next 5 to 7 days. You see how if we roll this forward, cool temperatures are making in the Tennessee Valley below freezing is the blue line. And so you see colder temperatures into the Northeast from the Tennessee Valley, but look at that surge of red and orange coming into Texas for the highs. You see this kind of build out over time. The same story as we get into Wednesday afternoon and Thursday and Friday. So really the bulk of the cold air is up here above the Canadian border, and nothing too major that we need to worry about in terms of cold weather. So it starts to come back in as we get on into time down beyond 7 days. But really, look at this, 40s, 50s, 60s across the southern tier of the country into the Gulf Coast, and then over into the eastern seaboard. We've got a little bit more troughing, so you got 40s and 50s dipping down into, this is 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, so dipping down into this maybe mid-Atlantic, and then you've got below freezing temperatures up to the Great Lakes and New England area. So not really too much to worry about in terms of bitterly cold Arctic air intrusions over the next 7 days. So it's going to warm up and moderate over the southern part of the country, particularly, and out into the western southwest as well. Snowfall, not much to speak of. We looked at snowfall up in the northwest, and the only other area that we're looking at here is up into the Great Lakes, into the Northeast. And you start to see as we get on into Friday, toward the end of the work week, you start to see a little disturbance moving through that area. We looked at that bend in the jet stream. There's a storm that's going to develop off the coast and sling some moisture back in here. And so you'll see a little bit of a pickup into the northern part of New England, and you'll get a little bit of snowfall response in, as we get on into 204 hours. That's a little bit beyond the range I want to focus on today, but so it kind of gets sketchy out there anyway. But I would expect a little bit more snow in the way of snow up in the lakes and over into the northern parts of the northeastern United States as we get on into the end of the 7-day period. And then I think that's it. That's all I had on the docket today. So we'll be back tomorrow with probably a longer episode of Cold Rain's Weather World, where we can talk, maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive or have some little fun segments in there too. But I wanted to just get this out to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Again, main area of focus, Pacific Northwest. You guys be careful up there. Everybody else going to be kind of a quiet period. Moderating temperatures is kind of the theme. Nothing exciting going on for the next 5 or 7 days. And until we see some changes, there's some hints of cool down beyond that. And we can talk a little bit more about that next time. So anyway, hope you're doing well, and hope you have a nice evening. Take care. Bye.